All right, I'm gonna try something else. So just hang on for a second. And part of the problem, I think, was some of what I want to show is video. This is an older computer, and I'm not sure it would handle the video as we try to transfer it from one to the other. And some of it has singing on it. And so I'm going to try to just show you the slide on this computer, but supply the sound from this computer. So that's what I'm going to try to do. And it might work, it might not. We'll see. So anyway, we'll give it a try. But as has been suggested, I'm going to talk a little bit about our trip to Uganda and the work that we did over there. The people here have just really been outstanding in their support of what we tried to do. And let me get that plugged in. Here we go. All right, there we go. But the church here has just been really, very good. Really good about what we tried to do and very cooperative. And they paid for my expenses to go over there, and a great deal of interest in the trip as the trip approached. And since I got back, people have been asking about it and excited, I think, to hear about it. So it's just really been, I just appreciate all of that a lot, and just want you to know that. But anyway, in Acts chapter 14, when Paul got through with his first missionary journey or preaching tour, he got back to Antioch, and he said, when they arrived and gathered the church together, they declared all that God had done with them and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And so he got the congregation together there in Antioch, and he told them about what God had done, the work that they had done. And so that's sort of what I'm going to try to do tonight. Talk a little bit about what we did in Uganda. So just hang on there just a second. And let me just... Okay. All right. Okay, so let me talk about this a little bit. The scriptures say, go and make disciples of all nations, or go into all the world and preach the gospel. So that's what we're trying to do in our own little way. We can't get to every part of the world, but we do have a responsibility to go and preach the gospel wherever people are receptive. And people are certainly receptive in Uganda and this part of Africa. Uganda is right here in Africa. And I just put this map on here to show just where Africa is and how far away it is and how large it is compared to the United States. You can see the continent of Africa is much larger than the United States. And sometimes people will get concerned because they hear about something happened in one part of Africa. And well, is that where you're going? And it may happen way over here somewhere. Well, that's probably 4,000 miles away from where we were. Tyler was over here in Sierra Leone, which is over here on the west coast of Africa, and I was over here in East Africa, and that's probably at least 4,000 miles away. And so this is where the last Ebola outbreak was, over in this part of Africa, and didn't really come over here into this part, at least not extensively, although they have had Ebola in East Africa before, but not recently. And so I flew from Birmingham to Detroit to Amsterdam, and then down to Uganda. It's travel time, it's over 24 hours, but by the time you count layovers and things like that, I left about 11:30 on Monday, and I got over there about 10:30 the next night. And so that's a long trip, it takes a long time, that's 2 full days of travel, but I think, as you'll see, I think it's worth it. And so here's a map of Africa, and Uganda is right here. You can see that it's bordered by South Sudan to the north. Now this was until recently just Sudan. Now it's South Sudan because they've been involved in civil war there. And sometimes those kind of conflicts, they sort of cross borders, and they've had some issues in northern Uganda. We didn't go to northern Uganda, but they've had some issues up there connected with this fighting in Sudan. It's bordered by the Congo, by Rwanda, which was in the news a lot, well, several years ago. Now things in Rwanda have settled down, and it's much more peaceful there than it was for a while. Tanzania, we went down into Tanzania. I'll talk about that a little bit. Kenya over here to the east. Uganda's a kind of a small country, probably about the size of Alabama and maybe half of Mississippi, although I think it has about 38 million people. Now, Alabama has about 4 million people, and I'm not sure what Mississippi has, but it'd be probably about maybe a few less than that. And so you got 38 million people sort of crammed into a space of Alabama and half of Mississippi, and so it's very heavily populated. Now, there are some rural areas, of course, but there are a lot of people there. And so we fly into Entebbe, which is down here on Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is one of the largest lakes in the world. And so the Victoria Falls are very famous, but they're way down in the south. We're not anywhere close to them, I don't think. But we fly into a city in Entebbe, and we drive up here to Kampala. Kampala is the capital city. It's got about, well, maybe the official statistics are like 2 million or something like that, but the locals tell us it's more like 4 million. So how did all this get started? Well, Frank Walton, he lives in Huntsville, he's preaching over in Limestone County now. He, over the years, has developed an extensive list of preachers in Africa and South America and places like that, and he emails them study materials. He might email them Bible sermon outlines or articles about Bible subjects that he comes across and things like that. And so he's been doing that for a while. And this man, whose name is Emmanuel Wazira, they put their last name first. And so Emmanuel Wazira, that's his picture. He somehow, I'm not sure how this happened, he ended up on Frank's email list. And he's getting these articles and corresponding with Frank. And eventually Emmanuel says, can you come over here and help us? And we need some help. We need some teaching. Can you come over here and help us? Almost like the Macedonian called, remember, can you come over and help us? And that's sort of what happened here. But he was from Rwanda. That's where he was born. That's where his family lived. But his family was killed in the genocide there. He escaped that when he was a child and ended up in Uganda. I think he had a relative there, an uncle or something like that, and he ended up staying with them. But of course, he's a Christian. He's a gospel preacher and does a really good job. We help support him. Very sharp, good Bible student, good teacher. And we help support Emmanuel so that he can devote full time to preaching the gospel. He requested Bible teaching on some doctrinal issues like I took this from Frank's presentation, the one cup or one container issue. Now, some of you may not understand exactly what that is, but there are some of our brethren, some churches of Christ, who say that in observing the Lord's Supper, we must use one container. You know, we use a lot of smaller containers for the fruit of the vine, but their position is, no, that's wrong. That's error. That's a perversion of the Lord's Supper. You must use one container. And so those brethren have been in Uganda, and they have had some influence there. Now, you know, Paul says, as often as we drink this cup. And so even though he speaks of one cup, what he has in mind is the fruit of the vine that's in the cup. The cup can be drunk. In instituting the Lord's Supper, Jesus says, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. The cup is poured out. And so it's just a figure of speech, and it's called metonymy, in which the container is stated, but it stands for the contents of the container, which is the fruit of the vine. And so maybe I'll talk more about that sometime, but that particular issue was being advanced over there, and Emmanuel said, can you come over here and help us and do some teaching on things like this? And so Frank decided, okay, that's a worthy project. I think I'll try to do that. And Frank contacted some people that he knew, some other preachers, and for one reason or another, they just couldn't go. And so he contacted me, and I didn't know Frank Walton. I'd met him, but I didn't know him. And he said, would you be interested in going? And I talked it over with Cherry and talked it over with the elders here, and said, yeah, I think I would be interested in doing that. And so that's how That's how I got in on these efforts, through his efforts. You can't really see this man. This man's name is Sospater. He, in 1969, was taking some correspondence courses from just different kinds of churches. There was a Church of Christ in Canada that sent him a correspondence course, and he took the first lesson, and he was interested in it, and took the second lesson, and he noticed that all the questions, the answers to all the questions were right from the Bible, and he began to study a little bit more, and finally, he decides, I'm going to be baptized. I'm going to obey the gospel. And he teaches his wife. His wife becomes a New Testament Christian. And he teaches, I think, a friend. He works for and he's still alive, by the way. I met him last time I was there. But he worked for the government of Uganda and somehow came into contact with a USDA agent who was over there, an American, who was a member of the church and baptized him. Well, from that beginning, that small beginning, he taught his family. There are people out in the villages. They taught their family in the villages. They taught their friends. And probably now there's 100 churches in Uganda. Now, some of them are not what we would consider sound churches, but that's a pretty amazing story that through the efforts of this one man taking a correspondence course, not all that long ago. So that's why we say the people in these places are receptive to the gospel. They want to hear. Now, Emmanuel preaches where this man is a member of the church. He has a school. He runs a school for children, a boarding school. Some of them board there. And that's where the church is called Booyah. That's where that church meets, in his school. And Emmanuel is one of the preachers there. Incidentally, one of the products that they grow and export in Uganda is coffee. Well, this was under Idi Amin's reign. They discovered some of the coffee was missing. And so they said to Sospater, we want you to find out what's happening to the coffee. And he began to investigate, and he found out some government officials were selling it on the black market. And he had to flee the country when they discovered that he knew what was happening. His life was in danger, and he had to flee the country. He went over into Kenya for a while until it was safe for him to come back. Well, Idi Amin, as I said a moment ago, he was a dictator in Uganda, and he drove out all churches and all religions except for Islam and Catholicism and the Anglican Church. Now, Uganda at one time was a British territory, so the Anglican Church is still strong there. And so members of churches of Christ, they had to go underground. I mean, it was just an illegal religion. But they kept teaching, and they kept meeting and worshiping, and people were converted and becoming Christians, and all of that continued, even though Idi Amin said it's illegal. So it takes a great deal of courage to do that. And when he was deposed, then there was civil war for a period of time. And so Christians are being converted, people are being converted, becoming Christians, but that just because of the circumstances and the political situation, they're just not able to develop very much. People like from America can't come in there. There's civil war or things like that. And so people who have had the opportunity to study and learn and advance, they're just not able to go and help these brethren out. And so there are a lot of Christians, but they need some help, to grow and mature in their faith and knowledge and understanding. And that's what we're trying to do. So in about 1996, I think it was, they formed a constitutional government which allowed for the free practice of religion. And so in the last 20 years or so, it's opened up, and people have been able to go in and do this kind of work. Well, we fly into Entebbe. There's the Entebbe International Airport. I've told some people, when you're at the Grand Canyon or somewhere like that, you take a picture of it, and you show your friends and say, this picture really doesn't capture how wonderful this scene is. Well, the picture doesn't really capture the scene there exactly. So we fly into Entebbe, and we take this road to Kampala. Some of you I've told about how we ran out of gas at night. It was on this road. And it looks like this, but in some places it looks like this. And then in a lot of places, it looks like this. And so we pass through there, you come to Kampala. Kampala is a big city. It's got tall buildings, and a lot of people live there. Like I said, 2 million at least, maybe up to 4 million. I don't know how anybody would ever count them all, really. But, a lot of people live there. It's a modern city. So a lot of it looks like this, but there's a lot of it that looks like this. And so this is just the situation in which people live. This is the way people live in the world. And, we're very fortunate to be able to live the way we are. And maybe, seeing conditions that are the way they are in other places will make us appreciate what we have. And we went to some of these places. If there's a church meeting somewhere in there, well, we'd go and we'd try to work with the brethren in places like that. Everybody was very friendly. I never felt threatened. You're a little cautious at times under certain circumstances, but really, I never had anybody that approached me in an aggressive way or threatened me. Everybody's very kind and seems to be very, very, very friendly and considerate. Well, we go from Kampala the next day to Maliba. So we come in, we fly. I leave on Monday. We get there Tuesday night. Then on Wednesday, we drive over to a place called Maliba. Now, Maliba is outside Kasese, which is way over here. So there's Kampala. So you travel along the road to Fort Portal and then down to Kasese. And Kasese, I'm not sure how big a town it is, but it's several thousand people. And then Maliba is a village outside of Kasese. This is what Kasese looks like. Now, that's not all of this city, but it looks kind of like this. And so now Maliba is a village outside of Kasese. Now, look at these mountains. So this is over in, the mountain region of Uganda, the Rwenzori Mountains. I think it's the highest mountain range in Africa. The tallest peak is higher than the highest peak in the Rocky Mountains in the United States. And we went up. We didn't go all the way up to the highest peak, but we went up in the mountains. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Some asked about the hotels where we stayed. This is one of the hotels where we stayed in Kasese. And it's okay. It's fine. There's a restaurant right on this end. That's where the restaurant is, and they'll cook for you. And you can eat, they'll have beef, and you can just get beef kebabs and ask for it well done. That's what I would do, make sure it's cooked thoroughly. And, no, I didn't have any problems like that. All right, so that's where we stayed in Kasese, and that's the outside of it. This has some video to it, and you can see the mountains in the background, but the video won't work. And so that's kind of the outside of it. This is the road to Maliba, but you can see the mountains there in the background. And this is Maliba. This is the sort of the town square. This is a trading center, and it's a little bit dark, but you can see lots of people here. This was maybe on a Saturday, and we just did some open air preaching, just set up a loudspeaker and started preaching. I told them, you can't do that in the United States. Well, you can't. You can't just set up a loudspeaker outside of Walmart and start preaching. Got ordinances and laws that regulate how much noise you can make. And so that they just wouldn't allow that. But here you can do that. And there I am. I'm sitting right there. And then this is sort of on the other side of this road. There are people over here. And again, the picture's kind of dark. Can't see it very well. But anyway, this is sort of the trading center in Maliba. Well, this is the church in Maliba. And it's not far from that trading center. This is the church building. They have their own church building. And this is it. This is a house where somebody lives right over here, and there's another house over here. But this is the church in Maliba. And these are some of the preachers that came to study with us. So we probably studied with 25 or 30 preachers over several days. And so I'm teaching. My subject was, the subject I taught on was a Bible authority. Just the authority of Scripture and how to establish Bible authority and do things according to Bible authority and things like that. And so these brethren come, some of them come from quite a distance to hear the preaching. This man's name is Shadrach, and this man's name is Solomon. And they're older men in the congregation there. They've been Christians for a good long time. This is on Sunday, and this is just a worship. And so we have over 100 people. So some of the churches in Uganda are good size, over 100 people. And that's true of this particular congregation. This man's name is Ronald, and he's a young man. He's wanting to preach. He's learning and getting some experience. And one of the things that he did a lot was he led some singing. And so I'm going to play you that here in just a few minutes. This man's name is Raymond. And Raymond is one of the preachers there in Maliba. Good solid man, I think. Good Bible student. I heard him preach in the open air preaching. He was able to preach in the local language. I think I heard over 50 different dialects spoken in Uganda. And so there's a language barrier. We have to use an interpreter. And so I think in Maliba they speak Lukwanzo. Some places they may speak Swahili. Some places they speak Luganda. Some places they speak other dialects. So anyway, he's a Raymond, good solid man, I think, and very devoted and does a good job. So this is what I want to try to play for you. If I can, I'm going to try to use my computer over here and see if maybe I'm going to hold this microphone down here and see if it'll pick up. So this is what the singing is like. All right, let's see here. All right, hold on a second.
And it says, which trophy should I give you, God? Which trophy should I give you, God, that will please you with exception?
So what we ask them to do is tell us what the song is about. So they're singing in their local language, and at this point he's explaining to us what the song is about. All right, let's see. Let me continue.
Of my heart. And the chorus says, Father, get this, save us from this situation, and you should bless us in this world.
Can you hear that at all?
You should give us peace, such that we can live in this world. And it says, which trophy should I give you, God, that will comfort you, with exception of my heart? So the thing is, there is nothing we can give God without either with exception of our hearts. We need to give our hearts first to God. That will please you. Thank you.
Well, it continues. But I'll stop it. I hope you could hear that. So I think what the leader would do, he would sing the first line. Not everybody has a songbook. And so they're singing from memory. And so the song leader sings the first line. This is the line that we're going to sing. And then they start. When they get to the end of the line, he'll sing an important word in the next line, or maybe 2 or 3 words from the next line. So that then they know, okay, that's what we're going to sing next. And so it's just, it's really great. I think anyway, it's just, and that's just a few men singing. When you get the whole congregation singing, you can tell it's very definitely an African song and African rhythms and things like that. But it's really, really good. Well, when you're teaching in Uganda, you have to be prepared for the unexpected. So we had a little visitor in our class one day. Chicken roamed in, and so, but that's just kind of what happens sometimes. You just keep on going. You just keep on going. Well, these are just some of the members of the church there in Maliba, some of the women and children. Here's I did this picture because she's a little girl and she's got her sister, I guess, on her back. They just tie them up in a long cloth, a scarf, and just tie it in the front. And they don't drop those babies. I'd be afraid. Here we are in the town square preaching, just open air preaching. This man's name is Tom. I'll talk a little bit about him later. He's translating for us. These are people in the church who've come to the open air preaching just to support us. And so these are members of the church there in Maliba. This section right here, this is a hotel. Now, it's not the hotel where we stayed, but that's a hotel. Here's a little shop. They're selling shirts. Here's a guy. He's got a little tarp spread out. He's got some pants for sale there. And so they're just there in the market doing business. Here's another picture of a girl. She's holding a little baby on her back like that. I suppose that's her sister. She might be helping another family. This is probably the best picture I've got. This is Frank. You've heard me talk about him, Frank Walton. This is Emmanuel. This is the man that we support. This is Raymond here. And this man is Moses. This man heard Frank preaching about worship. And Christians worship on the first day of the week. The New Testament tells us on the first day of the week that gathered together for worship. Well, he's a Seventh-day Adventist. And he approached Emmanuel and he said, I've heard that preaching. I want to talk to you. Could I be wrong about these things? And so Emmanuel is teaching him right there, as a result of the preaching that Frank did. Moses he's our driver. He's the driver. Well, we go to a place called Kitoko. Kitoko is not far from Kasese. It's up here in the mountains. And I'll show you those pictures. Let me just say this. I might go past 6 o'clock. If you have something pressing that you have to get to, I'll understand if you have to go. So I might end up going past 6 o'clock. Well, these are the Rwenzori Mountains. And so we go up into these mountains. Now, when I go to the Galleria, and I'm on the second floor, and there's the rail over there, you look down. I stay over by the stores. I don't even like to go over. Jerry and I went to a lighthouse a few years ago, and they have a little catwalk around the top. Oh, let's go out there. And so she's out there looking around, and I'm back against the wall like that. So we went up into the mountains, and the little dirt road, wow. I mean, the drop-off was just unbelievable. So I'm not even looking. I'm looking this way. And they would ask me, Bob, are you scared? You don't see me looking out the window, do you? Bob, you are safe. Frank, tell Bob he is safe. Anyway, I made it up there. I was glad to get up there, glad to get back down. These are some houses up there in the mountains. We're up in the clouds. That's how high we were. And this is the church up there in Kitoko. And you can see it's a good-sized congregation. These are some of the children there. This is their church building right here. In fact, there are so many people they can't meet in the church building. And so they put this tent up. I told them I was glad you put the tent up because the sun would burn my skin. What? Yeah, the sun will burn my skin. Oh, okay. Well, so anyway, I was glad they had that tent. But you can see these people live very simple lives. I'm teaching there on that day. There's Tom. This man's name is Tom. He's translating for me. Tom is the preacher there. Now, Tom has a college degree. It's a degree in human resources or something like that. But in order to work in that field, he'd have to go to the town. He'd have to go down into town and live there and work there. And the church has asked him, will you just stay here and work with us? And so that's what he does. This is Tom and his wife. I think her name is Gloria. They've been married since about March. And this is where Tom lives. This is Frank. This is Frank. And this is Tom. And this is where Tom lives. This is his house. Good. He's a good man. Just wants to teach the Bible, so a good Bible student. Well, as we left Kitoko, we had some car trouble. We broke down. This is where we broke down. At least Moses, who was driving for us, he wanted to take a look at that wheel and look at the brakes. The brakes were making a terrible noise, and that's not what you want to hear when you're coming down the mountain. But anyway, so he stopped, and this is Emmanuel, this is Raymond, this is Ronald, the song leader, preacher, this is Moses, here's Frank. And these are just children that live in this area. Well, before we left the Kasese area, we had some time on our hands, and Raymond said, let's go visit my sister. I'd like to encourage her. And she's a member of the church, her husband is not. And when we got there to her house, this lady was visiting Raymond's sister. Her name is Harriet. Well, Harriet's husband's a Christian, but she's not. And so we got talking to her, and she said, but I'm planning on being baptized soon. Well, Emmanuel, he picks right up on that. Well, why are you waiting? Why are you waiting? And so he begins to talk to her. He talks to her about 1 Thessalonians or 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and the judgment to come and the wrath of God is poured out on those who do not obey the gospel. What are you waiting for? And so it doesn't take very long until she says, well, okay, I'm ready to go. So she goes, we take her and we baptize her. That day, same hour of the day. Acts 16 took him the same hour of the night. So we took her to the river, same hour of the day, and she was baptized. Now, while we were on that end of the country, there were some other Americans, and this wasn't really planned, but other American preachers on the other side, the east side of the country, and they were having Bible studies, and especially geared toward young people and teenagers. I think they baptized about 14 people that week. And so there are people that are receptive there. Well, we leave Kasese, we go to a place called Fort Portal. Fort Portal is right up here. Back in the past, when Uganda was an English territory, British people came and settled around Fort Portal. There are a lot of tea plantations or tea estates where tea is grown in this area. And so you can go by the field and just acres and acres of tea out there. And so we spent a day in Fort Portal. Now there's about 3 churches in Fort Portal, and they've had some problems. They've had some very lax teaching and loose teaching from some people from the United States who've encouraged the use of instrumental music and women preachers and clapping and dancing and worship and things like that. In fact, the story that we were told is the preacher went to a Pentecostal church and said, now you can just keep doing what you're doing. We just need to change the name on the sign to Church of Christ. And so these men they're coming out of that. They're kind of seeing that for what it is, and they're coming out of that. That's Ezekiel. I think his name is Ezekiel, and these are some other men. This is an older woman that came with them. Later that day, we had a larger group, and this man was a Pentecostal preacher. Emmanuel spent some time with him, taught him. Not only was he baptized, but the whole church, which is about 12 or 15 people, I think. And so that's Fort Portal. So we just stayed there one day. There's Frank and Emmanuel and some of these other men. Well, then we go down into Tanzania to a place called Dar es Salaam. That's a big city, about 4 or 5 million people. And it's on the Indian Ocean. It's right here. Very large city. It's right near Zanzibar. Maybe you've heard of Zanzibar. And so we spend several days there. And Frank has had some contact with some preachers down there through email, just like he did with Emmanuel. And so we went down there and spent several days doing the same thing, just meeting with especially preachers, but others would come and teaching the Bible, just trying to establish a relationship and encourage them. And of course, they end up encouraging us. This is one of the this is the church building where this congregation meets. And this, again, you can't see it very well, and I'm not sure if that's an issue with the computer or the picture, but several here have gathered together. I think this is on a Saturday to study. This man's name is Godwin. He's the preacher here, one of the preachers here anyway, former Muslim. And he has written a couple of books about Islam and answering Islam. So he's got lots of experience with that, and he's written those in the local language, of course, but that's very knowledgeable. You know, I would be maybe teaching about Bible authority, making a point, and he's over there nodding his head just like, that's right. I mean, he's just right with you on things. And so his name is Godwin. This is his family. This man's name is Zuberi. And he's one of the preachers there as well. He's a younger man. He's been preaching there several years. You remember this girl here, Josephina? I told you about her, how she came home one day and told her father, I want to be a Christian. Well, the problem is that her father was a Muslim, or is a Muslim. And the way it was explained to us was that he's a fundamentalist Muslim. And so he told her, if you become a Christian, you might as well just find another place to live. Well, she lives with Zuberi's family. And in fact, he's taken in several children, some orphans and children that just need some help. And so that's the kind of man that he is. And so that's Josephina, that's her picture. This man's name is Henry. He's translating for us. Very well-educated man. Don't remember what his job is. But some of these men, they have a job. They might be school teachers or farmers. Raymond is a farmer. You've heard me talk about him. Tom, I think, he farms and maybe teaches some school and supports himself in that way. But Henry, I think this must be in a question and answer session. So they're pointing, okay, question, so... Anyway, his name is Henry. This is on Sunday. This is the church that meets in this place, gathered together for Sunday worship. Frank is teaching the Bible class, and Henry's translating for him. And this is outside that church building. So at the end of the service, this is what they did at the end of the service. They all started singing together, singing the song, and they had almost single file, but they started going out the door. And I was, I think, the second one to go out that day. I'm standing right here. So the first one would go out the door, and he would step to the side, and he'd stand there. The next one would walk past him, shake his hand while singing, and he'd stand next to him. The next one would shake this person's hand and this person's hand, and he'd be next in line. Until, while singing, they formed this circle. After the service is over, they're all standing in a circle singing this song. And everybody has greeted everybody. So we asked them, what was that song about? It's in Swahili. They said, the song is about, I'm happy because I'm going to be with Jesus. And so as they're singing that, it's just great. It's you're not used to that. It's something new for you. If you do it all the time, it might lose its power, but for us, it's just great. This is where you could hear on Saturday, let's see. Okay, let me see what I can do here. Go back. On Saturday, this is where you could hear from the mosque on the loudspeaker all over town, the Muslim man chanting in the background. I tried to get that, but wouldn't be able to. But all day, he's chanting or singing, whatever they do, all day. And we're trying to teach and preach over that. So it's kind of a challenge, but We got through it. This is another church in Dar es Salaam. There are several churches there. This is Katunda, and this is some of the brethren there. I want you to remember this man right here. His name is Samuel, but here's Godwin right here. These are some of the other members of the church here in Katunda. Canisa de Cristo, Church of Christ. I wonder if this is a little girl. Let me see if I can find her. This is so great. I'd like for you to. This is on Sunday. We're meeting and we're studying together. And so they sing a song. And I got a little bit of this girl singing. She's just sitting there. I'm sitting beside her, and so I just hold my phone like this, and she's just letting it go, you know. Just like sometimes here you have a child, and they'll be singing, just everybody can hear, you know. And that's the way she was. Now, I'm not sure what that song was about, but you know, she's just a little girl singing a hymn. All right, this man is the man I told you to remember. His name is Samuel. Now, he came from western Tanzania, and he rode a bus 12, 13 hours to come and study with us for a couple of days. Now, a lot of these people will walk. You know, they'll walk to the meeting place. When we were there before, we were meeting in Maliba, and they said, well, there's another congregation about 50 minutes away, something like that. They've got about 30 or 40 members there. And so we got in the car and we drove up there, and it's about 3 miles. But if you're walking, that's about 50 minutes away. So almost an hour. And so not everybody has a car. Most people don't. And so they either take public transportation if they can or walk. And so Samuel had been in contact with Frank, knew Frank was coming, wanted to be part of it, rides 12 hours on a bus to get there. This is another church. It's called Canisa. Well, I think they took the chairs from Canisa. This is just a roof that's built on the side of someone's home, and that's where the church meets, and that's some of them. This is on a Sunday, and we're studying together. There's Zuberi here, there's Godwin there. So they're hanging in there with us just about all day. And these are brethren outside that congregation there. Well, we can make our way back to Kampala, and we spend some time at the Namawango Church. And these are some of the brethren there. This is the preacher's name is Chris. And this is a small congregation, I'm not sure how many, maybe 25 or 30. That's just a guess. This is his wife. Her name is Kalichi. This is a convert there. His name is Paul. These are some of the children. And we were there on I think maybe a Thursday afternoon or something, just so not everybody could come. He said that there are several students there who are members there, and so they couldn't be there that day because they had school obligations to attend to. So we met there, and that's the inside of the building where they meet. And these are some of the children. I know some of you followed Frank's postings on Facebook, and there was a picture of me teaching the children. Well, that's where that was here at this place. We did just some street evangelism, just going door to door, trying to meet people on the street. And we ran into this woman, and Chris and Kalichi knew her. And so we stopped and we talked to her and tried to encourage her to study. And this was the day that we left. We left later in the night, and this is in the morning when that took place. Well, we make our way back to the Entebbe airport after... Well, it was an interesting trip, but we make our way back and make our way home. Let me just make one other point. When we were coming back from Tanzania to Kampala, as our trip drew close to being over, I was reading this book on the plane. You can see it's got a cross on it. This is sort of a history of doctrine. That's beside the point. And so I'm sitting on the aisle, and across the aisle and one row up, there's a young man. He ends up being, he's a college student. He's with a group going to Kampala. And so he kind of leans over and he looks at me and says, are you a Christian? I guess he saw me reading this book. Are you a Christian? And I said, yes. He said, are you an evangelist? I said, yes. He said, would you come to Burundi and preach the gospel for us? We need it. And so Frank was sitting right behind him, and he kind of took over the conversation. It's just easier for him to talk to this man than me. But, that's just the kind of opportunity you have. Could you come teach the gospel? Now, I don't know what's going to happen with that. Burundi's on the verge of civil war. And so the opportunity may not be there right now. But there are people who, would you come teach us? Would you come teach us the gospel? Would you come teach my people the gospel? We need it. And so when you hear that kind of interest, you want to take advantage of it. Well, I thought I might go a little bit long, and I did. But we began by saying that the Bible tells us to make disciples of all the nations. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up the church and so that they can make disciples. And while we're there, maybe we can make some disciples as well. But that's what we're trying to do, just fulfill that mission to go wherever we can go and preach the gospel and make disciples. But, we need disciples made here as well. And so as we bring the service to a close tonight, we want to give you an opportunity to become a disciple, if that's your desire. How do you do that? Well, Matthew says, in Matthew's account of the Great Commission, you make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. It may be that you've come to believe in Jesus and you're ready to repent of your sins and be baptized for the remission of your sins. If you're ready to do that, you can be a disciple of Jesus tonight. You'll be in the same family that all these people we've been talking about. We're just one family of God, same family. If you're already a family member of the family of God, but not faithful in your service, need to repent of that and ask God to forgive you by confessing your sins, and you can be restored. It might be that we're able to help you in some way tonight, and if we can, we invite you to come to the front as we stand and sing together.